The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching The More Show and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. Now for the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined with my guest, Joanne DiMaggio, who is an inspired writer, lecturer and teacher. Now Joanne has been actively involved with the Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment since 1987. Now she earned her Master's in Transpersonal Studies degree and her Spiritual Mentor certification through Atlantic University. Now Joanna is a graduate of the Eastern Institute of Hypnotherapy and a member of the National Association of Transpersonal Hypnotherapists. Now she's been professionally pursuing past life research and therapy for nearly 30 years and has been a guest speaker at several ARE conferences in Virginia. Now, her latest book, Karmic Can Be a Real Pain, was published in September 2016. Her other books include Soul Writing, Conversing with Your Higher Self, and its sequel, Your Soul Remembers, Accessing Your Past Lives Through Soul Writing. Joanne DiMaggio, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm really happy to be here with you today.
Oh, I am pumped that you're back on. I really do enjoy this type of work right now, the regression, progression, hypnotherapy style of work, because I think it really does get us to go within ourselves and be the answer we were looking for, not to get it from someone else.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, now, obviously, this interview is going to be about your latest book, Karma Can Be a Real Pain. We will delve into your previous books as well. I love the idea that the healing that can come from past lives, like healing from mental illness or whatever illness within the body that we have, what your book is saying is that all these illnesses that we may have, and we'll go over some of those illnesses, can actually be cured by curing the past life. Is that right?
If you uncover the past life, if you actually go to the root origin of it, and sometimes it isn't that you had a disease or an illness or anything like that in a prior lifetime. It could be an attitude that you had or something else, and just uncovering it often will heal it in this life.
I mean, that's not the norm, is it? I mean, that will be very confusing to some people, that something in a previous life could actually be cured in the present moment right now.
Right. I've had some cases of spontaneous healing. About 17% of the people in my book had a spontaneous healing, but most of them just reported that their condition got better, or it may have stayed the same. And in some cases, it actually did get worse. So I'm not claiming that this is any kind of a cure-all. It's simply a curiosity factor to uncover another form of healing.
Wow. And okay, the book explores the experiences of 23 volunteers sharing the details of the regression, the transcripts of the soul writing sessions, and the follow-up interviews. So that's very, very interesting the way you've sort of put this book together. Why this book now, do you think?
Well, I watch for synchronicities in my life, and there were several that pointed me in the direction of looking into whether there was a connection between a chronic condition in a person and their past life. The first thing that happened was I had a lot of clients come to me and ask me to do a regression because they had exhausted the traditional medical route and they were not satisfied with the diagnosis that they received, and they said, I wonder if this is past life related because nothing seems to be helping. So that started me shifting in another direction. And then I met Dr. Norm Shealy. He was at a medical intuition conference at the ARE, and he made the astounding statement that he felt that all illness was related to past lives. And so that and a couple of other things that went on led me to question this and design a research project around it.
Okay. So, well, we haven't, look, you've been on before. We're going to link your previous videos in the description just below this video. I think it is just in case, people don't know about you. Let's just get a little bit of info about you, because we mentioned the ARE there. So just mention, talk about, how you got into this, your association with the Edgar Cayce Center as well.
Okay. Well, I was fascinated with past lives since I was a child, but it wasn't until 1987 when Shirley MacLaine's book Out on a Limb came out and they made it into a miniseries on TV that I really got passionately involved in this work. So I started to look into my own past life journey, and at that time I joined Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment, and I formed my own past life organization, which I was bringing in speakers from all over the country. And then about 10 years after that, I did get my certificate in my certified hypnotherapy designation, and started to actually do the regressions myself.
Wow. Okay. And with regressions, is that something you prefer to do in person? Can you do it over Skype?
People ask me that all the time, and I do prefer to do it in person, and I'll tell you why. I need to physically be there to check on people's energy levels. If they get into trouble for any reason, if they're emotionally overwhelmed by what they've experienced, I need to be in the room with them to be able to monitor that. So I can't reach through the screen with Skype, and I don't do it over the phone either. So it's important to do a one-on-one.
I probably will say this, for someone like myself that channels, it's very easy for me to just, close my eyes, be put down into that state, or put myself down into that state if I'm inducing myself to channel. Right. It probably would be okay for me to go over Skype, because if anything went wrong, I've perfected it where I can actually come out of it myself, and I don't need anyone else there. It's just, what I'm saying this for, I think if you've been doing it a long time, I think it's different. I think I completely agree. But if it's a new thing for you, then yes, you need to be there. But do you think I'm wrong with what I'm saying, that if you're heavily into this?
No, not at all. I think, for instance, I could do it over, if someone were doing it with me, they were the therapist and I were the patient, the client, then I could do it. But that's really more the exception than the rule. Because most people have never had a regression. Most of my clients have never had a regression before. They've never undergone hypnosis or even been in an altered state of consciousness. So it's a little bit more of a challenge to work with them and get them into that relaxed state in which they surrender to what they're experiencing.
Well, let's face it as well. I mean, what would you say? Would you say there's maybe 20% of the US population that whose truth is in past lives? Because I'm just thinking that America is very much a religious country in one sense as well. So religion took out regression in the 6th century. It was in the original Bible, wasn't it?
Exactly, and that's what I tell my Christian friends who are or clients who come in who are very concerned about, this is against my religion, and I explain to them, well, actually, it's not. But yeah, that's about 24% of Americans believe in reincarnation. But the beautiful part about this work is that you don't need to believe in it for it to work. So even people that are skeptical can come in and still get some results from it.
And just for anyone that's completely new to this, right? What is past lives? Why do we have past lives?
Well, we've all come into physical existence basically at the same time. So we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And this has begun, thousands and thousands of years ago. And over the course of time, you've come into multiple bodies and came in to experience or work on a specific issue that you wanted to resolve. So coming to the earth was like coming to this beautiful playground, and being spiritual beings, we hadn't experienced anything that a physical being would experience. And so love, issues like abandonment or finances or career choices or skills and talents and abilities can only be fulfilled through a physical experience. And so in order to have those, our soul continues to choose a body lifetime after lifetime, and increase the number of experiences on this plane that it has.
Have you been regressed?
Many times, yes.
And in previous lives, were there any connections to the ARE at all?
I never really explored that, although I had someone, a very gifted medium that I knew, who had said to me that I had a past life in the Cayce family group of souls. I have met people that I have had past lives with here in Virginia, and it's always been an astonishing experience to talk to someone who said, "Oh, I remember you. I remember what happened," and because then you can't really deny your experience when other people say that they remember you and they were with you, and they come up with examples that you in your heart of hearts know to be true. So it's been a really interesting journey for me personally and professionally.
And why the Cayce Institute? Why Edgar Cayce himself is the attraction to his work? And also, sorry, who was Edgar Cayce for anyone who may not know as well?
Edgar Cayce was probably the most renowned psychic of the 20th century. He is considered the father of holistic medicine. He did over 14,000 readings in a trance state, most of which all of which actually we could go and research. Most of those were health readings, and so people came to him with different conditions, and he would give them the remedy. And he was far ahead of his time. And we're only catching up to him now. And then he started to do life readings, and it was in the life readings that he started to bring in information about past lives, which initially was very surprising to him, and he considered for some time to stop doing readings because, he was a very devout Christian, read the Bible every year of his life, taught Sunday school. So this was, suddenly he's giving information about, you're blind in this life because you blinded somebody in a previous lifetime. It really shocked him and shook him to the core. But after a while, he was able to integrate that into his work, and we've been the fortunate recipients of that ever since.
Amazing. And again, the ARE, the research center, is actually in by Virginia Beach. It's actually in Virginia Beach, isn't it? And all his readings are there that he gave to all the thousands of people that he gave readings to. And there's, it's a metaphysical center. There's so much there, isn't there, to see?
Right. It's open to the public. The library, I think, is the biggest metaphysical library, at least in the country, maybe in the world. I don't know. All the readings are there, the original readings, but members of ARE can access those readings online. So membership in the ARE is really a valuable way to learn about Cayce, to learn about the work that he did, and for researchers, it's a treasure trove because everything you'd want is there. When I was doing my research on my book, the card catalog had every possible condition from acne to venereal disease that I could look up. So it was just incredibly invaluable research material.
Fascinating. And, when in these 23 patients that you regressed, did most of them, if not all of them, come out of it and say, I've just made that up?
Oh, well, they didn't come out of it saying that, but they went into it thinking that's exactly what they were going to do. Many of them were skeptical. They all said, I'm not sure that I even believe in this, or I don't think that this has anything to do with my arthritis. It has nothing to do with a previous lifetime. And I'm afraid I'm going to make the whole thing up. After the session, when they experienced what they did, especially if it were emotionally charged, none of them said that. They all said, I couldn't have possibly made that up. Because I asked them, do you think you made that up? Would you have made that up? Would you have walked in here thinking, I'm going to fool her and I'm going to make up a story that's going to really surprise her? And of course, none of them did. It was all very real to them.
Okay, well, when I've gone under hypnosis, which is quite a few times, or when I channel, I always come from that space, even that little niggly thing in the back of my mind after I come out, it's like, I think you just made that up a little. I think you wanted those things to happen. But then again, I always then say to myself, but isn't my imagination so kind and loving that it wants that for me?
hmm Well, I tell everyone that everything that ever happened to you, of course, is in the Akashic Records, which is the universe's supercomputer. So Casey called that the Book of Life. And you could go in there and pull that and read exactly what occurred in whatever lifetime you're looking at. So when they have an emotional response, especially if they begin to sob or laugh hysterically or are shocked or almost traumatized by what they see, they can't make that up under hypnosis. So for them, it's very real. Plus, they have their aha moments afterwards where suddenly something clicks and they say, well, now that makes sense. And I don't think they would have been able to come to that conclusion if they had made the whole thing up.
No, that's no true. I think maybe it's just my doubting Thomas side that I think not just myself suffers from, but others as well. But I've got to say, the information, again, when I had a regression, no, it wasn't a regression, a hypnosis session just even 2 weeks ago, I said things on there that I couldn't remember when I came out of the session, and I've never had that before.
Oh.
And now I'm thinking, well, that was different. You would say that when you guide the patients or any patients that come to see you to what, if any, past life is causing an issue in the moment now. I mean, I didn't have that question set to me. I wanted to explore where this life was going to see a potential future, not an actual future, because there's no actual future, there's potentials. And I got to see a potential future, and it was so empowering what I got to see that what I may have the choice to do if I choose to do it. Is that available with you as well? Does it have to be past life all the time? Can you go into the moment now and tune into that greater part of yourself to see where you're going?
Right. You can also do pre-life sessions in which you could go and see what it was that you planned to accomplish in this life. How did you set the life up? And you could go back and remember, being with your guides at that point, with your soul family, and, what the decision was made about what family you were going to choose and why, what opportunities were going to present themselves, and then look at whether or not you've actually accomplished that. I've had a few clients who've asked me to do a progression, so going into the future to see what their life is like. That's not really my area of expertise. I've done it, and they've been satisfied with what they have seen. But most people want to know about the past. They want to know what's affecting me in the here and now and why, and what can I do to change that.
Well, that's very true. But I'm hearing information nowadays coming to me that another paradigm of all this is that actually future lives can affect current incarnations. Just as much as past lives can. And it kind of is saying in a very short few sentences here that you heal the past, you heal the present moment, you heal any future life that may be causing present moment problems, you heal present moment again. So I know that sounds a bit backwards, and I don't know if you've come across that, but that's some of the information that's coming my way.
Yeah, I haven't really had occasion to study that or to look into that, but I don't deny that that's a very real possibility.
The strangest thing is that back in January 2015, or it was December 2014, I'd lost everything in my life. I'd lost my partner, my business, everything. And it was in that moment when I'd lost everything, that's when I started to channel. Well, the weirdest thing was the person that came to me was Edgar Cayce, and he's been with me ever since in the book that I'm doing right now, and in any times that I go down, Cayce is always there. Now, whether he calls himself an aspect of Cayce,
Yes.
So I don't really understand what that means. I could guess, but I just wanted to share that with you because I feel like that you would understand that more than most people, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. Our past life aspects can take on many forms and be in multiple places and multiple times and impact people in different ways. The aspect of Cayce that is with you, no doubt, is that higher part of him that was able to connect to a higher consciousness and bring that information back to us. So that's absolutely wonderful and fascinating that would happen to you. And I feel like he's around me sometimes too. It's really interesting. Like he's, especially when it comes to doing the soul writing, because that actually was based on his work on inspirational writing. And so I feel like he's sort of hovering around me when I do that work.
Well, if I'm coming to America next year, and you know what, if I'm drawn to connect to you, and I may well be. I mean, you've got to be as well. I would come down and see you, do a bit of filming on location, just to talk about what you do, and maybe just have a regression session with you to talk to Cayce.
Oh, that would be fabulous.
Because you have to understand, I'm as like, am I making this up? I want to test this, but the book that it's brought out so far, I've got to say, well, I mean, it's not published yet. It's just going through the transcripts, but it's bigger than me. Or if I'm able to make that up, I've got a very loving, conscious part of me that just cares for people, cares for the world, and is very much more intelligent and able to describe things with a language that I can't. Do you know what I mean? Consciously. So yeah, I'll remember that. Yeah. Okay, well, getting into your book as well, where do we start? Okay, well, how did you initially set up the call for volunteers as well?
Well, I asked for volunteers through Unity Church here in Charlottesville, and I also put out the call to my ARE colleagues, and I had about 50 people come forward and say they would like to be in the session. So we did an initial questionnaire to find out if they were qualified for it. And if they were, then I had them come in, and we did the initial body scan, and then we did the regression and the soul writing. And then 6 to 8 weeks later, I followed up with a questionnaire to see what their condition was. So I had people coming in they were age 34 to 74. They represented all kinds of very respectable professions. These weren't the kind of people that you'd think, well, they're just going to make something up. No. They were very, I had aerospace project managers and university professors, so very respected in their fields. And they came in with all sorts of conditions that they were curious about. I didn't want initially to do addictions or mental health issues or sexual dysfunctional issues. I just didn't feel like that was something I was that knowledgeable about.
Yeah, sure.
Work with. But those are the people who came. So I have sections in my book on those very issues, and I thought, well, the universe is sending them to me, so I need to pay attention to this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I found that interesting, actually, looking at the table of contents that was actually in the book. I thought, wow, that's pretty groundbreaking in some respects as well, and we'll get into that. Obviously, the word karma is mentioned in the title, and I've had different people on with different perspectives, so I just really would like to know your definition of karma, because obviously there's a sort of Buddhist, Hindu perspective and other perspectives on this. What's your perspective?
I just use the very simple definition of it as cause and effect. Whatsoever a soul soweth, that shall it reap. And so in the case of the book and the case histories that I did, physical karma was really a manifestation of that karmic law, the law of cause and effect, but applied to the physical body. So conditions within the body that were visible or even invisible. So, karma can be many things. It can be something good. Most people think of karma as something bad, and it isn't. I believe everything that you've ever accomplished gets put into what I call a karmic bank account, and you can pull on it at any time. So any sort of skills or talents and abilities that you acquired in a prior lifetime, those are yours. They stay with you. You may not use them in every lifetime, but they're there. And you also don't work on issues chronologically. In other words, the things that you're working on now are not the result of something that may have happened in the life immediately prior to this one. I've had people go back literally 2,000-3,000 years and pick up on something that happened then. And that's even in my book. I had one woman who went back to 5 BC, another to 800
Wow.
BC. So it's interesting how you choose your time of when you're going to work on a particular issue, and it's not necessarily in the lifetime to come, the next lifetime after this one.
Wow, that's interesting. Any off-planet experiences?
Not from this particular project, but I have had clients who have told me that. Mostly they're not describing another planet. They're saying they are from another planet and they're here working on something because either their planet was destroyed or some other reason that they're here, and they're looking for their people. They're looking for others like them. But that only has happened a handful of times in all the years that I've been doing this work. So it's definitely not the norm in my practice, at least.
What about prodigy children? These young people with unbelievable skills, and yet it seems to run in the family as well. Have you come across any of those cases?
I don't work with children, so I can't really say that. Although I know my colleagues do, and I know of cases that I've heard of from them, but that hasn't been my experience.
Okay.
And as far as the family is concerned, we travel together as a soul family, and what I call a pod. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we came in and made the agreement prior to coming into this life that we were all going to work on the same issue together, and that we all had been together before, and that we had all, acquired these skills. So that wouldn't surprise me whatsoever.
That's fascinating. It really is. With the karma, as in, I think what you're saying as well is what you put out, you get back. Or maybe you're saying, if you do something wrong, well, not wrong, but whatever you do to another, you're doing back to yourself. So if you're going to hurt, kill, whatever, another, there in some future life there will be some sort of scenario that's worked out where you are experiencing maybe something different, but to do with the ramifications of that life.
Yeah, it's not always a tit for tat. So it's not always, like in the case when I mentioned earlier, when Cayce told someone, well, you're blind in this life because you blinded somebody in a past life. I have had those cases, and they're certainly chronicled in my book. Sometimes it's an attitude that you have. Cayce had another woman that he did a reading on who was obese in this life, and he said she was that way because she made fun of people who were obese in a prior lifetime. So in that case, it was her attitude that has caused the condition that she had now. Cayce used the expression, you're meeting self, you're coming back to meet self, meaning that, you're coming all the way back around circle, and these are things that you did. And it could be something that not only that you did to someone, but something that someone did to you. And also, many people come back, highly advanced souls will come back, and they'll come back perhaps in a damaged body, or in a situation in which they're dealing with some mental challenges. And they've done that so that the people around them will react and learn something from the way they're responding to that other person.
So, very interesting. Thank you for all that you're sharing. It's really, really interesting stuff. So basically, if someone's had an agreement on a soul level that, I'll be the murderer, you'll be the victim, obviously there's free will. There's free will in the moment now not to do that. That's the great thing about it. It may be destined, but you're still destined with free will. So is it because we go against the free will, not against the free will, but freely we chose to hurt someone? That's why, there's something that has to be healed from that in a future life. We don't have to go forward with these crimes, but yet again, even if we do, we agree to do it. Why would there be any ramifications then? Or is that a natural law of energy or something?
Well, it's basically, not so much what you do to someone, but rather what the response is. So, like I mentioned about people coming in with some sort of a chronic or a physical condition, that's going to impact the other people around them. How are they responding to that person? Mm-hmm. You can change your mind at any time, and actually, that's one of the benefits of past life work, or pre-life agreement, because then you know what you've set out to accomplish, and you could perhaps make a conscious decision to go about fulfilling that agreement and learning that lesson, but in a very different way. So, and that's what the law of grace is all about, too. The law of grace supersedes karma, and it's just depending on how you choose to deal with the situation that's in front of you.
Fair enough. Okay. Not always easy, though, is it? Because when you've got, kids that have you've lost or whatever it may be, something. It's no, everyone's pain's the same. I mean, I'm not, but you know what I mean. But if someone's gone through something really traumatic, it's got to be from them to want to come up with this truth, because it's just their truth. It's no one else's.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I'm not negating the pain involved or the suffering or what they end up dealing with in their individual case. But it is, like you said, it's their soul's journey. It's the path that they chose, but that doesn't negate the seriousness of the situation.
No.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Okay, we're getting about to get into some of the articles in the book, some of the chapters. But just before we do it, this midpoint, let's just remind people of how to get in contact with yourself as well.
Sure. My website is joannedimaggio.com. It's JoanneDimaggio.com. That's the best one.
Thank you. Well, that's been coming up on the screen along with all your books as well. Do you think sometimes when you're taking a patient to be regressed that you're connecting to their higher self, or do they have a higher self plus spiritual team, or it really depends on what the needs of the client are in that moment when they're going into regression?
I always address their soul directly, and ask their soul to take them to the life that's most impacting them in the here and now. Now, I have had some clients that are rather advanced in this work, and they have brought in their guides. And I could tell because of the way that they respond to my questions. They tend to look upward, even though their eyes are closed. They'll look upward and they'll ask their guides, they'll repeat my question in a way and then answer. So as to who it is that I'm actually speaking to when we're doing the regression, I'm assuming that we've tapped into their Akashic record and that they're providing information through their soul about what happened in that particular lifetime.
Well, let's just go to one of the topics that you wasn't sort of preparing for in the sense of what came through. Let's go to the sexual karma, because that's an interesting one.
Okay.
Now, what were the results of that then, in the sense of, was this past sexual trauma in previous lives that was emanating in their life now, or how did that work?
Well, I had a woman who came in complaining of, and she was a 40-year-old woman, healthcare provider, who said she had zero libido and painful intercourse. So she went back to a life in 15th century England. She was a young boy who was pretty happy-go-lucky guy, but got beaten pretty severely to the point that there was some structural damage, and he stopped growing and he became hunched over. While he's wandering the streets, he happened to see a woman. He saw a woman in an alley or some side street, whatever it was, being raped. And he thought that was normal behavior. So he was fascinated by it and kept staring at her. He was very jealous of anybody that was beautiful. And for some reason, he equated pain with sex. And so now that happened in the 15th century. So here she's a boy, sees a woman raped, equates sex with pain. Now she's coming into this life, and she's dealing with painful intercourse. So that was the lifetime that her soul chose for her to see. I had another one who went to the 18th century England, 1717, something like that, and she had been sexually abused by her uncle and her tutor in that life, and she kept it a secret. She never told anybody. So this life, she was dealing with a skin condition, a rash, and she said that the rash erupted because of the after an affair ended in this lifetime. And so she equated it in her mind was, this rash, I kept everything underneath my skin. Everything was underneath. And now, here it's happening to me again. This abuse is happening, and now it's exploded and it's become a skin condition. sometimes it's not easy to make the connection between what they're telling me in the course of an hour session with their past life, with the condition they're working on now. But those were just two of the examples.
Wow. So those two people now, for example, how much healing did that give them?
The one who was the young boy said that her condition improved. The other one said that it stayed pretty much the same. But I should say that the people who told me 2 months out that their condition was the same, that nothing had changed, they all said that they had a shift in their perspective about what happened to them. And it was simply understanding it that caused that shift to happen. And then they were able to accept what it was they were dealing with now much better. And that in and of itself led to a healing.
Yeah, exactly. It's not all that the healing isn't always so obvious, is it? And it could take him the rest of his life to have that healing, for that process to be carrying on. I mean, it's not always instantaneous. I mean, maybe at a deeper level, he's still not ready for some bits of it.
Right. It would be interesting to follow up now that at least a year or so has gone by since I've done these sessions.
Right.
Because I did have one who was dealing with a weight issue, and she said, I really wish you'd come back to me a year from now and see how I'm doing. But, I haven't done that with any of these people.
Well, yes, because there's weight and digestive issues as well. And again, these relate back to past life stories that these people would never have dreamt of or come across or, envisaged themselves being part of. But the strangest thing is, I bet as well, is that when they've told their story or you've retold it to them, if they're maybe a bit forgetful what they've said, I bet that resonates the most that any other story could resonate with them.
Exactly. It just makes total sense to them. And they get their aha moment, and then they have this, you can see sometimes the peace coming over their face, because we do some forgiveness work in the course of the session. And they just say, oh, well, now I get it. Now I understand. And that in and of itself heals. So, sometimes this isn't exactly, like I said earlier, it's not a tit for tat sort of thing. It's multi-layered. And it just, the understanding of it, the understanding of the origin is just as valuable to them as the healing experience is.
Okay. Well, drugs and alcohol, now that's a big one for some people.
Right.
Maybe in different forms, in the sense of, excessive, not excessive, but there's still addictions with drugs and alcohol. And what were some of these stories where people's addictions for drugs and alcohol in present moment, something in the past was affecting that usage?
Well, the one that I found most interesting was Meg. Meg was a 62-year-old retired flight attendant. And when she grew up in this life, she never drank. She didn't drink in college. Her parents didn't drink, so she didn't come from an alcoholic family. But when she was working with her flight crew, whenever they would get into their destination, they would go out and they would be drinking. And this is where her addiction began. Well, we went back to a life in which her name was Lawrence, and it was in 1712 in France. And she described herself as a dandy. And the way she described, he was very wealthy. He was like a wealthy playboy. So he had the best clothes. He had all this money. And, of course, that attracted a lot of men around him as friends. So they would go out drinking together and doing some drugs. And they'd go into these opium dens. And that's where he died at a relatively young age of an overdose. Turns out when we did the regression that the people from the 1712 lifetime were the exact same people from her flight crew. And so when they got together, that dynamic that had been so prevalent in the past life, that had left that imprint on her, that behavior pattern ended up being repeated. But she was able to transcend it. And she realized that her way to sobriety was through service. And so she began to do service-related things for people, and was able to maintain her sobriety. Both of the people, by the way, that I had with the drinking and alcohol were already well on their way to recovery when they came to see me. They just simply wanted to know, where did this come from, just for their own information.
Yeah, because isn't it so true in that those cases, or any cases that come to you, that these, like as you just said there, these people have these these urges, these like parts of them where they don't understand where that came from, because there was nothing present in their childhood to cause those particular cravings.
Right,
and it's
there's
like
logical about it, and that's the same thing with people that are gifted. People that you would mention, prodigies. You may have someone who's a gifted musician, and yet nobody in the family ever played an instrument or composed music or anything like that, and they look at these child, or they could be a math genius or anything else, or an architect, and they look at it and go, where did this come from? This makes no sense. There's nothing in my biological family in this life that would answer that question.
Right. I had I don't know if you heard of this name. God, I hope I get the name right. Aniama Kamaric. I hope I'm getting the name right there. She was on the Oprah show when she was about 7 years old, maybe. She was painting these beautiful paintings. I don't know if that this rings a bell at all. She did the Prince of Peace and some other great arts. She still paints now. She's 21 now, 22, and her parents, her father was, well, I think they were atheists, put it that way. Obviously, no more they are. And as she's got older, she now, I think she feels that there is a bigger picture to her gift, because she sees how profound that it is. And I think her youngest brother is also one of the world's youngest philosophers. So there's something, that's not normal. You could just say, well, out of a random world of billions, randomly, they just had those gifts. It's just all random. But I don't believe in randomnism that much, do you?
No, not at all. And is that easier to believe than the fact that she brought it in from a past life? I mean, that's, I don't know. To me, anything is possible, and I have seen and heard it all. And I just believe that if everyone in the world believed in reincarnation and told the story of history from their actual experience, how different would this world be? I have so many people who remember being someone semi-recognizable from a prior lifetime. And they say, that's not really what happened. This is what happened. If we all would accept that as a possibility, that these people are telling the truth, that this is what really happened, our whole world would change. Plus, there would be no prejudice, because we would all know that we have been all races. We've been both male and female, and that we're all one. We're all the same. We're all coming from the same source. We're just, like I said, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I think if we understood that it would be a completely different world that we'd be living in today.
But then, what if the souls who would never look at this particular type of information or work, who would always poo-poo it maybe, are meant to be disconnected from themselves? They've actually come here to have a disconnection from who they truly are, with a very heavy veil, so that the lives of the souls around them are the ones that are going to have the experience along their journey with them as well. Maybe they're supposed to be in that state. I don't know.
Exactly. Well, some people, I had a client come to me recently who had this most idyllic life. It was a beautiful lifetime. No complaints about it whatsoever. Was very satisfied with it and very peaceful about it. And he questioned that. He goes, well, what was that all about? I didn't seem to accomplish anything. I said, what makes you think you have to do that every single lifetime? You may have been on a vacation, on a respite. Many times souls that have done had a journey that was significant. They had a challenge that was significant, a very difficult lifetime. The next lifetime, they take it easy. They just come and enjoy the planet. So there's no way to judge. anybody's journey. That's a very personal thing for them to do, and it's possible to have a lifetime in which you just simply are here to enjoy the beauties of the earth.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's been said to me before from different researchers that that's what they've come here for. You can't judge a soul just because it's having a life that seems very easy. You just don't know what in a past life what it got up to, or what it had to experience. Okay, so what was some of the most compelling sessions that you had, or just name one compelling session that you had?
The one that sticks out in my mind is the one that I had with a man named Gary. Gary was a 68 years old Navy veteran who came in complaining of arthritis, but the arthritis was only in his thumbs. And so Gary went back to a past life in which he was a man in Virginia. He was in the Civil War, and he would use a saber to chop off the thumbs or the whole hand of the Union cavalry when they were in battle. He did that on purpose, he said, because he thought, well, if I don't want to kill them, I'll just chop off their thumbs, and they won't be able to hold a sword, and they won't be able to hold a gun, and that'll be the end of it. And so it's interesting that in this life, he comes in, and where's the arthritis? It's only in his thumbs. So that was a case of the what he did coming back and affecting him in the same way. The other one that I thought was really fascinating was Emma. Emma came in with sciatica, and she went back to a past life in 18th century France as a ballerina, prima ballerina. She said that she deliberately caused a rival dancer to fall. She had put down like a broom handle or something, and it was dark backstage, and the gal tripped and broke her leg. Wow. So now Emma is dealing with pain in the exact place that this gal broke her leg. But on top of that, the rival ballerina came back into this life with Emma as her daughter. So now she's dealing with the physical ramifications of that karmic incident, as well as the relationship issue between her and her daughter. It's been very problematic in this life, very judgmental. They've had a real difficult time with each other. But when Emma realized that this was the origin of the problem that she was dealing with her daughter, she shifted in the way she looked at that relationship and had a healing based on that. So those were two of the ones that really stick out in my mind.
That's incredible. That really is. Thank you so much for sharing that. And also, you had the soul writing portion at the end, where I think the patient was required to remain, well, I say patient, but they was required to remain in an altered state and ask their soul if there was any additional information that they wanted to bring forth. So, was you doing the soul writing, as in, with the pen, or were you transcribing it, or and what is soul writing compared to something that Neil Donald Walsh might do, which is in creative writing, or what do you call it, where you're channeling the writing basically?
Well, it's not automatic writing, I'll tell you that, and there's a big difference between the two of those, and I do outline that in the last chapter of my book. Soul writing is a written form of meditation. That's about the best way to describe it. It's writing in an altered state of consciousness. So if people want to think of prayer as them talking to God and meditation as God talking to them, this is you taking notes. So what I did at the end of each session, I brought them all the way back to full consciousness, not quite fully back. I put a pen in their hand and a pad of paper on their lap, and I said, now I want you to ask your soul if there's anything else that could tell you about that life that you did not get in the regression. This often gave them the backstory or answered questions that they may have had. While they were doing the writing, I was doing the writing as well. So I'm in touch with my friends upstairs, and I asked them, is there something you can give me on their behalf that I can share with them? After we were done writing, then we would share that with each other. They would read to me what they wrote. I'd read what I wrote, and I included some of that in the book. Sometimes it was just their writing, sometimes it was just mine, or sometimes it was both of ours, and that's at the end of each one of their case histories. That's where the aha moments came. That often would tell them something that they didn't get in the regression but made a lot more sense. And then I would encourage them to go home and to continue to do that writing, because you can actually carry out an entire conversation with your past life aspect. Frank DeMarco did that in his book, Chasing Smallwood. So he was using a form of the same kind of writing that I was using, and had an entire conversation with his past life aspect, who was Joseph Smallwood, who was in the Civil War. And if you read the book, it's absolutely fascinating that you're talking to yourself from 100 or 200 or 1,000 years ago, and you can actually ask questions and have a dialogue going. It's quite fascinating. But in the case of my clients, since many of them had never done this writing before, they just got little snippets. They might have gotten a word here or there or a phrase, and then I got the sentences, because I've been doing this for a long time. And also bringing in Edgar Cayce. This is based on his work on inspirational writing, which is in the readings.
So let's get this right. Who are you connecting with at the time with the patient that you're bringing through information on behalf of the patient? Who do you connect with?
I connect with my own guides. So I have a group of 9 that I work with, and I would ask them, is there any information that you can give me on behalf of Sarah or John or whoever I'm working with? And then they provide me with that information, and then I share that with them. So it's channeling on my part.
Yes, it is.
Right. And I didn't always include this in my work until I actually started to realize that you can use this form of divine communication to access past life information. You don't have to do a regression. You can get it through the writing.
But that's incredible that you're doing that, and I'm so glad you are. But then I still, in my tiny brain, can't work out the difference between that form of writing and then something that Neil Donald Walsh would have done when he wrote Conversations with God. Because, okay, well, he's not bringing through a past life aspect. He's bringing through an aspect of what he called God. But then again, he meant that aspect may be an aspect of his higher self, though.
Yeah, you don't need to use it just for past life work by any means. My first book, Soul Writing, has many chapters on the various ways you can apply it to your life. It's a 24/7 phone home card. Basically, that's how I think of it. So it's you asking for guidance from a higher aspect of yourself, or you could call it your angel, your ascended master, your guides, you could call it God, providing you with information and having a conversation with you. So it's like a guidance team, a guidance counselor, but they're available to you. That information is available to you all the time. And you can ask about relationship issues, about career issues, about finances, about your illness, about anything and everything. It's just open. So I think what Neil is doing is basically the same thing.
I think so. Yeah. You know, we call it different words, but maybe they're just human words for something that we try to put a word on the unwordable.
It's so hard to describe, isn't it?
Yeah, because it almost, but by burying it with language, it's almost like, well, that's the correct way of doing it. This is a different way, and you just get confused. Well, hang on a minute. Well, which way's which? Because it's all just as magic as each other, in one sense. But yeah, it's, as you're saying as well, all answers lie within as well. That's the beauty of what your work does, and I really like that you are the master and you're in charge of your destiny by going along this road as well. I think it's very empowering. It really is. Overall, then, what did you take away? What did the volunteers take away, should I say, from this work? Because I'll just mention this. There was 23, as I've mentioned before. We've only touched on just a few.
Mm-hmm. I think all of them were grateful for the fact that there was research being done into this area, giving them an explanation that would supplement what they were already getting from the medical profession. This wasn't intended to be in lieu of seeking medical help. This was intended to be a supplement to it. That they knew that all answers lie within, and that the information was available to them on their own, that they didn't really need, they could just go within and find out what they needed to find out, that they had a connection to spirit, they had a connection to each other, and that they were eternal. And I think that that understanding about why things happen, what's the reason for them, and how do you apply that to your life now, was something that each and every one of them could do, no matter how deeply they were involved in this work or not. And I think that was invaluable to all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just thank you for doing what you're doing as well. And actually, where would you see your work going now?
Well, I'm actually working on a book right now that you might be interested in, because it's about Thomas Jefferson Davis, who was Gladys Davis's nephew. Gladys Davis was Edgar Cayce's beloved secretary, and she really was responsible for saving the readings after Cayce died. TJ lived with Mr. Cayce for the first 9 years of TJ's life, and saw some incredible things. You can imagine what it would be like for a child to grow up in the Cayce household. So, but Cayce did a reading on TJ, and so this sort of follows the life that TJ had during those 9 years with Cayce, what Cayce had predicted for him, and why he really hasn't been able to achieve that prediction. So that's coming up next.
Oh, you're coming back on for sure. Please, that'll be amazing. Unless we do the interview in person, because I'm going to America quite a bit next year. So who knows? That'll be very interesting, because I do want to go to Virginia. So yeah, okay. Well, that's great. Well, just remind us again how we can get in contact with yourself.
Through my website, joannedimaggio.com, JoanneDimaggio.com.
Excellent. Well, Joanne DiMaggio, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Kevin. I enjoyed it.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on The More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.